Catalytic converters. We buy them, we process them for their PGMs. We've talked about the importance of the circular economy and recycling the catalytic converters. We've also talked about DIY decanting catalytic converters, right? But that's all end of life on the catalytic converter. So today I thought I'd ask you a few questions. Maybe you can enlighten us on the catalytic converter before we see it at the end of life. So my first question today is, how long does a catalytic converter last?
Oh, that's a good question. Catalytic converter is going to last as long as you're keeping the mileage, fairly low. I mean, under 150,000 miles, it's probably going to last all the way through that cycle.
Yeah.
Beyond that, when you're 150, 200,000 miles, it's probably going to have a failure event. I remember one time we took our Suburban up to the mountains to go skiing, and it was cold. And we hit a rut in the road, and all the way drive back, you could hear this rattling under the car. And I couldn't figure out what it was until I brought it to the shop, and they said, oh, well, the ceramic monolith inside the converter shattered.
Oh, great.
Because it was so cold, it's so brittle.
Right.
So that, things happen, right? But what happens also is they can get plugged. They can, fail due to, wear. The exhaust just blows the precious metal out the tailpipe over a period of miles, the longer the miles go. And
yeah.
So they need to be replaced.
So maybe 10 years, possibly they could last?
Yeah, they could last 20 years. It just depends on how many miles the vehicle's got on there.
Yeah.
But who drives a car 20 years?
Depends on what kind of car it is.
Right.
It's a classic, right?
Exactly.
So that could also relate to the strict EPA standards that the manufacturers are up against,
right,
to enable them to sell cars, like in our state in California. So they probably have to adhere to those high EPA standards.
Right.
Now that's OEM. What about aftermarket? What do those typically last?
Well, aftermarkets, they don't last very long.
Yeah.
They don't have to be warranted for the life of, say, an OEM vehicle. 5 years, 7 years, they give a warranty for that vehicle. So the catalytic converter, it needs to last through the warranty period. Whereas I'm not sure what the aftermarket warranty period is, whether it's 90 days or 2 years. I guess it's different with different
manufacturers.
Aftermarket manufacturers.
Yeah.
But they're only going to manufacture to the spec for that warranty period. So they don't last the 10 years or the 5 years.
Right.
I think if you get 2 years out of an aftermarket replacement, you're doing pretty good.
Yeah. It's nothing bad against an aftermarket, obviously, but they don't have to adhere to then the same loadings as the OEM converters.
No, but they do have to adhere to the same emission standards. So
right.
When it's brand new, yes, but as they wear
and age,
then it falls off.
Right.
I've heard some interesting stories from mechanics say 30, 60 days out, they have to replace it.
Really?
Because it doesn't pass smog, and they just put it on.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, what are some telltale signs that your catalytic converter is going bad?
Well, I think that, performance is one issue. You can tell if the car is not performing properly just by your day-to-day driving experience, and when you notice that it's changed on you, that's
like when you're pushing the gas pedal down to overtake somebody on a freeway overpass, and there's no power.
Yeah,
power loss.
Exactly. And a couple other things. I mean, you have different sensors in the exhaust system, and they're gonna illuminate to the electronic control module and start throwing codes, and then the mechanic can plug in his OBD2 reader and see what the problem is, identify if it's the sensor or if it's the catalytic converter,
right,
or the EGR valve or whatever else there is in the system.
Now, like what you said, you mentioned about the Suburban, and you heard the rattle. I could
I couldn't figure it out. It was annoying. We had about a 10-hour drive back from Utah to Southern California.
Oh, yeah, that's
it was loud.
Annoyance for sure.
Yeah, I knew something was wrong. I just didn't know what it was.
Was there any like puff of smoke or anything like that? Because I'm sure that when they're failing, that might be a telltale sign, right? You might see some smoke, or sometimes if that monolith is loose in there, you might just get a good pop, and some of it you see come out the exhaust,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Wow. What about like obviously if they're failing, they're running hot. I mean, would you feel that in the car?
They're running hot. If your engine's running hot, that's a tune-up issue.
Yeah.
And
Well, I meant like inside the vehicle, maybe like floorboard. Is that something
that's a
where it could be
possibility.
a possibility?
Yeah, well, because sometimes if the engine's not tuned right, you can burn that ceramic monolith. You can actually melt it and blow it out the back of the tailpipe.
Right.
And that converter is going to overheat. You're going to get the heat coming up from the floorboard if it's underneath the floorboard there.
Yeah. That's a telltale sign for sure.
Definitely.
Heat at your feet,
Yeah.
depending on where the converter is.
We've seen a lot
car.
of those converters come in where they just,
Oh, yeah.
exhaust just burns right through that ceramic monolith.
Yeah, it's just
You got this hole
burn.
that the exhaust is going through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what
They call that a gross polluter, by the way.
you think?
Yeah, I think.
Oh, that's funny. Now, what could be some other potential risks other than, theft of your catalytic converter that you could maybe look out for?
Potential risk? Well, everybody's talking about theft these days.
Yeah.
And when you look at the size of the fleet on the roads in the United States, the number of catalytic converter theft is very minuscule in comparison to the number of vehicles on the road. But it's a pain because they're expensive to replace. So that's always the first thing that people want to talk about is, all these converters are being stolen and where are they going? And our industry is addressing those issues right now. This year, it's a big hot topic item. And a lot of changes are coming for buyers, collectors, processors. Most of it, I would hope, will be voluntary.
Yeah.
But as far as other risks are concerned, I can't think of a whole lot other than, the engine not performing properly and the excessive heat. And like I said, the issue with, breaking or cracking the monolith and blowing out the back of the tailpipe, those are pretty much most of what you're going to run into.
Right. So maybe adhere to routine scheduled maintenance on other parts in your car. Maybe it could
keep your
help.
car tuned up for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Now, what about, do you have any tips to try to help prolong the life of your catalytic converter? Anything you could think of?
It's funny. I've seen some videos where people try to flush them out and clean them with a water-based solution. And I don't see how that could work. Not well.
Right. Or you go down to your local auto parts store and buy this, run it through the gas tank, and it's supposed to clean your converter.
Yeah.
If it's at that point of, failing, it's not going to do any good, right?
Right.
So it may not be worth the money wasted on that product then.
Right. And, to try to replace it with an OEM converter, you're talking thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
Aftermarkets are in the hundreds.
Right.
That's why people replace it with aftermarkets, because it's, easier on the pocketbook.
Right.
Initially.
And like here in our state, it's illegal to repurpose a catalytic converter.
Well, yeah, and I believe it's federal.
Oh, it is federal.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's federal. Yeah, you can't reuse it. You can't take it off a vehicle and then mount it on another vehicle as a replacement. There's no way to regulate and follow its life history, so they made that illegal.
Yeah.
And so you're better off just replacing it with a new converter when it needs to be replaced. Yeah.
Well, great. Well, I appreciate your time today. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks everybody for
Thanks, Rich.
watching. Please subscribe, like our videos.